Hi, I'm Dr. Rebekka Matheson, and I'm a medical doctor and a professor of neuroscience here at Brigham Young University. I'd like to talk to you today about something that I've been thinking about over the past several weeks. I was thinking about this phrase that some people used in my youth. A primary teacher often said it, my mom said it a few times, my grandpa used to say it, and that's curiosity killed the cat. Maybe your old people never said that, but plenty of mine did. And plenty more, without using that specific folk proverb, would imply that curiosity or drive to gather truth and knowledge was somehow innately salacious or evil or would lead to bad things and bad outcomes. Well, I'm here to say they're wrong. I actually want to tell you a little bit more about the history of that specific saying. Actually, it came about because of a mistake, like a typo or like a game of telephone. Someone just wrote it down wrong. It was originally care killed the cat in the 1500 sense of care, which meant worries or woe. The saying cropped up in several plays in Elizabethan or Jacobean England, including those of William Shakespeare. And the implication was usually that worries would kill you, so you needed to have courage. And so the saying remained that way for 300 years, until it seemed to have been misquoted in an Irish newspaper as curiosity. And here's an interesting thing that happened soon after that. It cropped up in an O. Henry short story, and I love O. Henry, but this is kind of sexist. He said, curiosity can do more than kill a cat, and if emotions, well recognized as feminine, are inimical to feline life, then jealousy would soon leave the whole world catless. You know, I actually kind of love the quote, as sexist as it seems. I don't love that he says that jealousy is feminine, but I love this idea that curiosity is feminine. And I'll come back to that. In our faith culture, we have some precedents for that too. But I want to go back to this history of this silly phrase. It didn't take long after this curiosity killed the cat mistake caught on that it acquired a rejoinder. And the rejoinder was, but satisfaction brought it back, or but it came back. It's possible that this was joining the saying with the other saying that cats have 9 lives, implying that the risk of experimentation could ultimately lead to resurrection because of the satisfaction of new knowledge. In fact, I do think it's related. Curiosity is adaptive. Curiosity has helped us as a species. Individuals who are curious and forage and move and find new things increase the health and fitness of their community. Knowledge that you get now might not do you any good immediately, even if it eventually will. Fortunately, the human brain can feel rewarded by satisfying curiosity itself, even if the overt benefit doesn't come until later or directly to you at all. Today, I want to encourage you to use curiosity as a guiding force in your life. Cultivate it, let it work within you. Build a habit of curiosity. Avoid people and places and voices that seek to undermine or squelch your curiosity. And be skeptical of messages or policies or movements which frame the curious pursuit of truth as the enemy. One point I'd like to start with is this idea that you might have heard in church or in school before, and that's what's the opposite of fear? A popular lesson in a church context is that faith is the opposite of fear. And I like this. I think there's a lot to learn from framing faith in this way. I've taught lessons with that motif myself, and I'll actually bring it up again in a bit. But I also think it's incomplete and imperfect and doesn't explain all the aspects of faith very well, so I think there's more to it. So let's talk neuroscience for a minute instead. Some neuroscience or medical case studies tell us some interesting things about the opposite of fear. We have some case studies of people who don't have functioning amygdala in their brains. Your amygdala do a lot of things, but one thing they're very involved with is fear learning, fear responses, and the subjective feeling of fear. One person with lack of amygdala function is known by her initials, SM. She's fascinating. She has contributed to a lot of important work in neurology, psychiatry, and medicine. She, and others like her, teach us something very important. When you don't have fear, it's not just that you are at a neutral, fearless baseline. No, actually without fear, people actually show increased curiosity, or what we sometimes call approach behavior. They are very interested in what would otherwise scare them. They are fascinated by things and they want to learn all about things that would otherwise maybe be too scary. And that includes people who would otherwise scare them for whatever reason. Maybe they're big or different or from another place or background, or they make different choices. Fascinating. Curiosity, approach behavior towards those people. Neuroscientifically, there's a strong argument that curiosity is the opposite of fear. Curiosity about people is the opposite of fearing people. This makes me read what Paul wrote to Timothy differently. He wrote, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Wait, I'm actually going to back up with that. You know that quote already, but I'd like to read it again, this time in its proper context. "When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded that in thee also. Wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift of God, which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." Did you see that? I'm not making this up. This lack of fear, this power, this thing called faith and power and love and sound mind, in other words, curiosity, including about others, is specifically referenced with women as the exemplars, Eunice and Lois. This is a divine inheritance of women. Women are explicitly used as the exemplars of it in Scripture, and that doesn't happen very often in old records, unfortunately. And we're supposed to stir up this gift of God. Curiosity has been characterized as feminine throughout many cultures. In Judeo-Christian faith and in Islam, we have the story of Eve. In Mediterranean pagan religions and cultures, they had Pandora. There are many such figures. Maybe that's interesting to you, maybe it's not. But I will say that I don't think it's a coincidence that cultures who personify such things, yes, especially including biblically based cultures, have typically personified wisdom as female as well. Curiosity leads to wisdom. Curiosity teaches the cat how to have 9 lives. Curiosity is a habit. What does this look like in a practical sense? Look things up when you think of them. Yes, Wikipedia them, I said it. Don't know a word, look it up. Don't let your curiosity go stale. Curiosity is ephemeral. Get in the habit of following your curiosity while you have it. It often doesn't take very long. If you let your curiosities grow stale, that will become your habit, and you'll turn into an incurious old person. Don't let that happen. At school, take classes that pique your curiosity. Let your curiosity guide your choices. Curiosity enhances learning and memory. This is neuroscientifically true. We feel the most curious when exploration will lead to the most learning. So you'll feel curiosity when you feel like you don't know something, but you can learn it and relate it to other things. Curiosity is fruitful and rich, fertile ground. I'm a scientist, and I'm a big advocate of what is called curiosity-based research. Now, that might sound on the surface like everyone should believe in it, right? Wrong. Unfortunately, funding mechanisms have moved away from curiosity-based research over the past few decades. Most of the greatest discoveries which have led to the most good came from people following up lines of research questions based off of their own curiosity and search for truth about the world, plain and simple. But then those with the money say, but so what? How will that get us more money? Where's the good? And everything needs to be applied. Everything has to say this will solve this problem, rather than this is truth we are curious to discover. But the thing is that it was that curiosity-based research which has gotten us to where we are. Along with that, another trend I see is an animosity towards what is often called a liberal arts education. The term comes from the Latin for freedom and principled practice. The idea is that people should strive to be well-rounded in natural sciences, social sciences, arts, and humanities, and that the university education was meant to open this universe of curiosity and provide the tools for people to follow their curiosity and know enough to continue to be curious about many different areas. Now, nationwide, there's a culture of saying, let's just have students take the classes to learn one narrow set of employable skills. And I know some of you feel that way too. It saddens me a lot. This is the time to teach your brains how to be curious, to indulge that. This is the time when your brain can learn that habit and get those basics. I know you don't think about being 50, 60, 70 years old very often. But these are the years, the protected years, that will make the difference between you being an incurious old fuddy-duddy on your couch snapping "curiosity killed the cat" at your grandchildren, to the youths and to other youths because you're scared of new truth and new paradigms. Or the difference between being a vibrant, engaged, ever-learning 50, 60, 70-year-old. That divergent path starts now. You don't need college to be that person. but you are privileged enough to get it as a powerful tool in that direction. Use it. Ralph Waldo Emerson, when speaking to young students, said, "Fear is something which a scholar, by his very function, puts behind him." I'll tell you a personal story about that. I have a lot of scientists in my nuclear family. My dad is a physicist. My mom studied chemistry. I have 3 older sisters: evolutionary biology, chemistry, microbiology. Bam, bam, bam. But I was not a scientist. No, I self-identified as the black sheep and was quite vocal about my identity as the non-scientist. I loved many fields and was curious about many fields. So I bounced around in a lot of majors, which I don't regret for a second, actually. But after all, you do need to choose a major to graduate. One day in the middle of the term, the stressful time, could have been early March, maybe early October, my roommates were sitting around talking about midterms and papers and projects and how they felt really, really challenged. And for a little second, I felt smug because I wasn't feeling challenged and hadn't really yet in college. And suddenly this huge sweeping torrent of shame washed over me. It's like nothing I had ever felt. Here I was at college at this time to learn and grow, and I wasn't challenging myself. It was a horrid feeling. And I asked myself, what is it that I'm scared of? Well, the answer was science. I didn't recognize my curiosity because I was scared of it. I took a long walk, and when I got back, I opened the major catalog and found the major that went the furthest into the 3 areas that scared me the most: physics, chemistry, and biology, without sacrificing one. And it was neuroscience. And it was an amazing thing because I realized, hey, that is something I've always been curious about. But I hadn't thought of it in years because of my fear. And I declared the major, and I just felt home immediately. Was it scary? Yes, but I chose not to be scared. And what did I find in the absence of that fear? A thirsty, voracious curiosity that rages to this day and sustains me. Now, I have to point out, different things are challenging for different people. I'm only speaking of what was going to make me personally feel challenged. So what next? Grad school? My sisters had all gone to grad school, so that seemed like the natural next step. But everyone around me was preparing for medical school. I hadn't considered it. It seemed so scary. No one in my family had been a doctor. I didn't necessarily have a vision of being a doctor. I had a vision of sharing my curiosity with others, of just kind of learning new stuff forever and hanging out with other people who also wanted to do that and teaching and talking about it. But when I thought about my classmates going and learning all about that precious, beautiful knowledge in medical school, all about the human body, the human experience, the plight of human life, the glory of human life, the pain of human life, the poignancy of death, I couldn't bear it. I felt as if my heart would break if I couldn't learn that material too. So I applied to a combined medical PhD program. My vision of being a teacher remained, but medical school has been the most beautiful, rewarding experience in my life so far. I chased my curiosity and have built a beautiful life for myself by doing so. Side note, I'm always curious about words, and 3 words that all have the same Latin root: curiosity, care, and cure. Med school in a nutshell. Now I feel I'm exactly where I need to be. My dad told me once that there's times in our lives where our worlds naturally expand and times when our worlds naturally contract. I think he's right. But I knew I needed to be around people whose worlds were expanding, and that's why I chose to go into teaching. It was the curiosity. It was to be around other people who were curious. There's a story I love, and we're pulling out the big guns. It's an Einstein story. It comes from a May 1955 article in Life magazine by the editor, William Miller. He goes to visit Dr. Einstein to try to give his son Pat a kick in the pants. You see, Pat is a college freshman and experiencing some ennui. We learned that Pat, quote, has a natural gift for the sciences, but college had bogged him down into a sort of philosophical nihilism, asking himself what significance there was to human endeavor if the universe was dying. Now, the world's pretty complicated right now, and the future is unclear, and some of you might feel that way too. William says to Einstein, never lose a holy curiosity. Try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. I'm not trying to push you to science, just to follow your own curiosities, and that you have to bust through your fear to do that. But I do have a few more words to say about science specifically. Picture a science lab. What do you see in your mind's eye? Do you see a mad scientist laboratory with beakers and flasks and weird tubes and liquids and some spiral-y thing lighting up and big machines whirring away? Okay, real labs are actually even weirder than that. What's with that? all the weird esoteric trappings of science, it's actually really simple. It comes down to the limitations of the human senses. Friends, the human senses are so comically limited. There's this whole electromagnetic spectrum out there, including wavelengths we use as X-rays and radio waves and more. And our nervous system can only pick up this teensy little sliver of what we call visible light. And only if an object is big enough or bright enough or close enough. And we think this is truth, this tiny itsy bitsy bit of what's out there that our senses allow us to perceive. The same is true of all of our senses, hearing, touch, everything. The frequency of pressure waves we can pick up so narrow. We can't even hear the mice we train to run mazes communicate with each other. They do, but the pitches are too high. So we need a machine to pick up on that. There are black holes and nebula and Oort clouds out there. There are proteins and ions and all sorts of crazy stuff in here. But because of our limited senses, we can't see them. That is all the crazy trappings of science are. Various ways to expand our senses to try to see more. I know you learned about the scientific method in elementary school or whatever, but really science operates by trying to expand the observable data set. We need to see more. How can we see the truth is out there if we can't see right now? And of course, that requires asking the right questions, which requires careful observation of what we can see right now. But all those 2-photon microscopes and mega telescopes and centrifuges and colliders and supercomputers, we're just trying to see what our human senses can't allow us to see. It's just all curiosity. There's all these famous misconceptions about the natural world. The intuitive idea that heavier objects fall faster, or that moving objects will naturally slow to rest if nothing acts on them, or that we can tell a person's personality by their external face or skull or body type. These are natural and easy and comfortable and seem useful, but are wrong. You can live in that comfortable world, but you can't grow in it. That's what a dark age is. Follow your passion is so cliche and pretty overrated. Some of you might be driven nuts by trying to find the thing that makes you feel passionate. For some of you, it will come easily, but for a lot of people, it just will never resonate as an idea. Let me propose to those people the alternative, to follow your curiosity. Be curious towards others. Be curious about others' experiences. The curiosity will lead you to love. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me, flare up like a flame, and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror, just keep going. No feeling is final. That's the poet Rilke. So I've based nearly this whole little talk around refuting the sentiment behind curiosity killed the cat. And some of you may have never even heard that saying before. You know, this another harmful idea that sometimes old people say at church, be careful what you pray for, is actually a related damaging thought. Our subculture's way of saying the same thing. Don't strive, don't try to reach your potential. Don't you see that you will be punished? That's dangerous. Striving is dangerous. Stay down, pray for little things. But you, like Eunice, like Lois, were not given the spirit of fear. You were given power and love and a sound, curious mind. Make curiosity a habit. Chase it, run after it, follow it as a muse, and you will live a beautiful, productive, powerful life.